The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. It's Heath Robinson again, and I'm excited to be hosting and welcoming back Joe Reardon. It's been about a year, and so it's great to have him back with us. He will be presenting Unleashing Your Vision with Topaz Labs and Topaz Studio.
Well, thank you, Heath. I appreciate it, and it's nice to be back. So I've picked several variety of photographs to go over with you today, and I've made an awful lot of presets myself, and we'll show you what they look like, and then I'll show you how I have created these and why I created these, which I think is more important, why I created them for this particular look. So we'll start with this image, which I shot down at Cape Cod, my favorite place in the universe in Brewster, Massachusetts. Just had a beautiful night that night. So this is what it looks like coming out of RAW. So I've created this preset to start out with. So let me go over a little bit of what we did on here to make this particular preset to make it look like this final image or close to final image. I started with precision contrast and adjusted the micro. I'll put this back over to negative. You can see where what it's doing, and we'll put it back to where it was, about plus 35, plus 35, 36, and we went for some of the low contrast to add some contrast back in. Again, go left, go right. All of this is always seasoned to taste. Whatever works best for your particular image to make it look its best. This one I went a little bit into the negative side for the medium contrast, and again a little bit positive to bring it out a little bit more. We opened up the shadows on this particular one so I can pick up some of the detail that was in here and in here. And midtones I brought up. You could see what it looks like going down. So we brought this up just to bring out some of the midtones. And we'll go down here, a little bit of highlight adjustments here. I made a little bit of color contrast on the negative just because testing with this, it looks a little bit better going a little bit on the negative side. Every image is going to be different. So when you make your presets, it's a base image or base preset for an image that you may have 6, 8, 10, 20 shots from that particular evening, and then you can tweak to your heart's content for each one. This one here, we also went to Hsl Color Tuning. And as you can see, I've already clicked on some of these to make the different colors show up. So if I click on, and right below each one, there's been a little bar underneath. You can see where there's been an adjustment made. But I will click on it, and I hope you could see the crosshatch of what colors are in this particular image. And what I've done to them, I've made some of this one here is the red hue, made it a little bit negative. And this one is the orange. We've made that just very little negative on saturation and a little bit darker. You can see where can you see the cross hatches, I assume? And we've got a lot on this. Yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes, but on my screen, if I click on it, you can see the cross hatches. And again, I'm just adjusting them to suit my taste. This one has an awful lot of green hue, obviously from the seagrass. So I adjusted that saturation up a little bit and turned the lightness down. This one I worked on quite a bit. So we had the aqua. Obviously it's by the ocean, so you're going to have a little bit of that color in there. And again, some blue. Turned it down from the clouds, getting a little bit of the blue out, and purple over here. Again, taking some of the darkness and making, some of the lightness, making it dark. Made some small adjustments with the suppress the artifact so that we don't see that show up on the screen. And the color sensitivity I left alone. So we go down here. And this one, I didn't do too much. I put in Indy Haze. As you can see that the strength of the Indy Haze is at 36. So let me crank this one all the way up. You can see the effect, what that would have on you. So again, season to taste, whatever works well for you. I'm going to finish this up one more adjustment that I'm going to like, because I love these adjustments with the slight S-curve. Add a little bit of contrast right about there. Always just a little bit of contrast in there. It's my personal style that I like. And I would love this photo finished just like it is. So let's move on to another one. I've got several that are both internal pictures and external. So we'll just click on this one. Now, this one here, I had to take into Photoshop because I use focus stacking, where I focused on the instruments. This is an old Canterbury Shaker Village facility where they would actually operate on the people that live there. These are very old surgical instruments. And so what I wanted to do is bring out this, the highlights of this. So I made this one with these adjustments, basic adjustments. Drop the exposure down just a little bit. I brought the clarity up just a hair. The shadow I left alone because I like the mysteriousness of what's going on down here. If I open this up, a little too bright for my taste. So if you double click on the shadow, it's going to go back to 0 again. And the highlight I dragged down because this was a little bit too hot for my taste here, right at the sheet. And I did a black level down below it here. As you can see, I'm not clipping both ends. So I adjusted the white level and the black level. And this is the original image without an adjustment. And you can see what I've got for an adjustment right here after I've made all of these changes. And what else? We made a little bit of a contrast adjustment with the precision detail or clarity adjustment. This is what it's called in here. Sorry, my bad. I used precision detail, and I made some small adjustments with the overall medium detail boost here. And again, that seemed to be enough for this particular one. And this was a preparation for a black and white. So we're going to use this, and we're going to adjust into black and white. So we're certainly not finished. So with the black and white, it turns everything to a 0 number. So since I'm a little color defective, I always adjust each one to see which one of these sliders gives me the effect that I'm looking for the best. And we're going to adjust to taste or season to taste to give me what I want. So we're going to adjust each of these sliders until I see what I like for the look that I'm looking for here. And if you go gross both left and right, you're going to see a difference or no difference. And if there's no difference, then there's none of that color in the particular image. We're going to make a small adjustment on brightness. And this works very similar to black and white effects too. I can bring a little bit of details up here, suppress the artifacts, and we would be good here. I have one more adjustment I would make to this, and it's a vignette, because I want you to focus right here. Now, what I normally would do with a vignette is I would make the strength at 100, so I can see in the size, and bring that down, bring the roundness down, and bring the transition down. So it's very small. And now I'm going to adjust it to where I want. Bring the strength. Then I'll make the size. And I'll bring this out to the edge. So it's drawing in just what I want you to be focused on. The transition makes it a little bit softer on the edge. And the roundness, I prefer the round versus the square vignette. And you can see that I've now made you look right here at the center of the picture, and you could change the center of where your vignette is just by moving this in this area here. So I'm trying to draw you in right here where I want the image, or the focus of the image to be. Okay, so I would say this was finished. So this is the before, and this is the final. So let's find another image to work on. And again, we're going to work on an interior. And I've already made interior with details. And this is let me show you exactly how you do this before we go too far. I've made some basic adjustments here, and if I change just one little thing, I can save using this button right here, save effect. It's going to come up and you give it a different name or whatever name that you want. I'll give this the dummy name, test, basic, and it is a interior. So I'll use clarity in this. It's architecture, and you can make this public or you can leave it as private. So if you make it public, it is open up to everybody that's in the community that wants to use this particular one. But in this case, I'll just make it private. Sorry. And we just press OK. So now I've got a preset that I've called test. Then I can bring that up and use it on this particular image. So we'll reset this, and I'll show you how to make this right from the go. So we started out with basic adjustment, and we'll change the exposure just a little bit. It's a little bit dark. Bring this up. I like the clarity a little bit more. Personal preference. And again, seasoned taste, how you particularly like it. The highlight, it's a little warm here. I'm going to a little hot here. I'm going to bring that down just a little. Black level, we've got. White level, I'm going to watch the histogram up at the top and see where it goes. I'll bring it out as far as it goes before it starts to clip. So I've got a nice Gaussian curve with my histogram, and I'm not clipping both on the black level or the white level. And we're going to leave the temperature alone. We have another enhancement we want to use here. My favorite, tone curves. Bring this down. Add a little bit of contrast to it. And then I'm showing you both places where you can add new adjustments to this. Here, we're going to add a little bit of precision contrast. Bring this up so we have just a little bit of contrast of what I want. Bring up the midtones just a little bit. We don't want to make it too contrasty, so we'll use the midtones, bring that there. And again, I'd be a little, one more, and we're going to use color tuning, because I want these to pop just a little bit. So we'll find out what colors that I do want to change. As we go through them, you'll see the crosshatches show up. And I like the hats to change color just a little bit. And there's a bit of red in there. I want those to come up in brightness. But I want to tone down just a hair on the saturation. The hue is fine for me. And I would be happy with this particular one. I may add another vignette just to draw you into these brooms and the hat. The strength I'm going to make a little bit less than 50. I just want you to come in there just a little bit and have a little mysterious look from coming down the stairs and from the doorway over here, and have you drawn right into where I want you to go, right here. So we'll try another one. And with this one, we're actually going to go in and out of the plugins in Photoshop. Let me find the image.
Hey Joe, I
Sorry.
had a couple requests. Once you find the
Yep.
image, can you close that image panel so it makes the image a little bit bigger? And then could you make Studio full screen? If you go right there, that'll full
Yep.
screen it. And then if you look at the right below the canvas, there's that little arrow. If you click that, that'll close the panel. There you go.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Let me find the image, and I'll work in that mode as well.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. No worries. No worries. So we've got this image, one of my all-time favorites. And this one was storm clouds too. As you can see the difference right away, but we're not finished with this image at all. Let me go through a little bit of the steps that I used to create this. It was one of those special nights where it was stormy clouds. I had storm clouds that was down the Cape, storm clouds over the bay in Plymouth. And this was actually knocked out the power in my house, and I was down the Cape taking these photos. So we just had a magical night with the lighting conditions there. So again, a little bit of micro contrast adjustment, both in the micro and the low. You can see if I go negative, you can see it getting softer, and I want this to pop just a little bit. In the medium, again, you can see it gets softer, and I wanted it to be just a little bit off from normal. And the high, I went a little bit plus side here. Let's see if I go too much, you can see it starts to block up. Always a season to taste. A little bit of shadow, so you can see this. If I put this back to 0, and this started at 46, it really started to block up through here. And I wanted to open it up so you could see the shadows in there. And again, we made a slight adjustment on the midtones. I'll go negative on that. And you can see we went positive. It opened it up just the way I wanted to. And the highlights, again, going negative versus going positive. The saturation I left alone, and the color contrast, I dropped it down just a little bit. So you have an awful lot of different adjustments that you can make within the Studio, much more than I've seen with other Adobe products that you just can't do this all in one package with other products that I've seen out there, which is really pleasing to me here. So again, a little bit of tuning. And everywhere, as it shows here, everywhere there's a bar underneath the particular color, I've made an adjustment to adjust the overall brightness or overall saturation of a particular one. And that's the really nice thing I find about this, that you can actually go in and adjust every particular color that is in this particular photograph, and not have an effect, an overall or a global effect on it. So you can see some changes that I've made in the lightness within the green, and then the blue. I've got a lot of blue in the sky, so I toned that down quite a bit, made it a little bit darker. The saturation I left alone, but we can turn that down just a hair. And dehaze. And I'll show you the next part in dehaze. And I did make a mask here, and we will do a mask and show you how that works. So in dehaze, this is probably the best dehaze that I've seen, bar none. As you can see, I've cranked this up and had an overall strength. And you can make it very strong, which is a little too much, but find it just season it to your particular taste and what you're looking to do. Now, to create a mask, there's a button right here within each one. If you know about in Photoshop, this is what I refer to as a clipping mask. So it's only going to affect the layer or the adjustment that you've got right underneath it. It's not a global mask as you would have here. This is just a clipping mask where I can come in, make a mask. It comes in as white, so white reveals, black conceals. And within this, I have a lot of adjustments to make this feathered, make it edge aware, make mask be expanded. In this particular one, I'm going to use a gradient mask. So it's going to affect just the sky. A little bit below, you can adjust this to your taste. And you can see it's leaving the seagrass alone, and it's affecting just the sky. Just a little bit by turning down the opacity, and you adjust this to where you want. Turn the opacity down, you make it lighter or darker. And this, you can reverse it and invert this, and the darkness goes to the bottom. So very easy to make a mask here. And I can also use multiple masking methods here as well. So we can mask other areas here. As you can see, with white revealing everything, suppose I didn't want this quite revealed all the way, we could make this a black mask with edge wear on there. And now that is masked out as well. We'll reverse that, undo that. So I'll Control Z it, undo it. It's gone. And we'll invert this. So this is a very powerful feature within Studio, being able to do multiple type of masking all in one image. And it's a clipping, as I said, it's a clipping mask that you can go in and do it by color range. You can do it by spot. You can do a gradient filter. You can do it by color range, and you can do it by luminosity. This particular one was a gradient mask. When you're done, you press done. And for me, I would make one last adjustment here. Personal taste, tone curves, my favorite, a little bit of S curve, just give it a little bit more contrast. So I'm really letting this seagrass pop right at the top, and it's differentiated from the background here. I would crop this one last time. I didn't particularly like the way it showed all the footprints. So I'd panelize this particular one just under this little body of water. Press done. It'll take a second, and it's now panelized. So I'm not having the middle of the picture be the horizon line. So it's offset a little bit, so it shows up the sky very, very big. So let's find us another one to begin. Here. So I shot this actually this year. We'll reset this completely. And this is what the raw image looked like. This was after dark. And it was out at Thor's Well out in Oregon. And it wasn't in daylight. It was just after sunset, so long exposure. But I wanted to get the crashing waves over the rocks here. So I made a preset earlier to be practicing with it. Slow motion ocean. And you can see the difference already. But let's walk through the steps that I went through to create this. It's quite a bit. But as you can see, I don't think I could ever do this in Lightroom. I know I couldn't. But with this, I can. So I started with a basic adjustment, made some adjustments to exposure, and I brought it down, showing where it started. You can see I brought it down just to get me a little bit darker in the waves and a little bit of drama look here with the waves crashing. Jacked up the clarity just a little bit and opened up the shadows. Actually brought them down just a little bit just to give it some drama to us. And the highlights I brought down just a little bit. If we bring this all the way up to the right, you can see it kind of blew out the waves, and I wanted it to actually give you some feeling of detail in through the waves here. And not clipping, so I'm not too worried about the black or white point at this point. So now we've added in some precision contrast, which is basically clarity, but it's clarity within the studio environment. It has all of the same features that you would normally see in the plugin. Again, we just made some micro contrast. I'll go negative. We put that up to positive. You can see it made it very soft, not what I want. I wanted some drama, so I put this up to about 26, 27, 28, in that range. So I wanted you to feel the power of the ocean with the contrast that we're adding into this. And if we go with the low, you can see that it adjusted areas in the photograph that are a little bit lower contrast, and I wanted this to be just a little bit more. As I recall, this was probably about a 2-minute exposure at that particular time of night. And we went a little bit negative on the medium contrast. If I go a lot more, you'll see it just changed the complete look of this particular photograph. All right, and then on the high, we went a little bit negative as well. You can see as I move the sliders, it's having a very, very dramatic effect. You can see this is getting a little too contrasty. So we'll bring this back down. A little too much. There we go. And then opened up the shadows quite a bit because this was starting to block up on me. So we opened up quite a bit. If I go negative, you can see it's really not giving me a pleasing look. So we opened it up enough to give you enough detail. Really, you could tell, I think, that it was shot after dark with a very long exposure. And the midtones, again, we made some significant adjustments that made it look too daylightish, and it wasn't daylight. So we brought that down a little bit. And the highlights, again, we dropped that down just a little bit, just because I wanted you to see the movement in the ocean, the waves crashing there. And again, Indy Haze. And I really put the strength of the Indy Haze up. Let me take it off, and you can see what it looks like. And adding it back in there, it really helped it. But it went a little too strong for where I wanted, so I put a mask in here. Now, this time I'm going to use a Manasi Mask. And as you can see, anything that's black, it's not revealing. Anything that's white is being revealed. So I toned down the area through the ocean just a little bit, but the mountains are all getting completely masked out. And I can adjust this mask transparency so I can give it a little bit more, a little bit less. But I really like the luminosity masking, being able to get in there and get that particular tone and mask out just what I want. So it gives you not a completely black mask, or it's more grayish, and it follows the brightness levels or the darkness levels of the particular photograph. A little too much dehazing on that, so we backed off just by using that mask. And you can, again, change the strength of that and suppress the artifacts as well. And here again, we went into color tuning. And these are all additive, so that you can keep adding in new and more different adjustments to this. So here, as you can see, I've got an awful lot of the cross hatching was blue. So I made a little bit more saturation. a little bit lighter, excuse me, and I left the saturation just a little bit under to take a little bit of that blue out of the ocean. Because of being a little bit after dark, it tended to get to that color. Especially when you're using a neutral density filter, they don't ever come out with perfect color. You have to make some adjustments for the filters themselves to take that out. As you can see, everywhere that I've changed underneath here, I go through each one of the colors to make sure that it needs or it doesn't need it. And you can see I made some slight adjustments in each one of these that has the little bar underneath. Again, we went through one more Indy Haze strength, and then I did another mask. So I give it a little bit more after this, and again, I used another luminosity. Again, to get what I wanted. And now I've got the blue out. I've got some of the different colors out that aren't pleasing to the eye. And I've masked off the mountains in the background and the rocks as well. Last but not least, my go-to, which is a little bit of an S-curve. As you can see what happens. If you adjust this, put this back to normal, and then just adjust this to taste. Those of you that do use curves, you'll understand that how powerful they are. And those that don't, they're your best friend when you're trying to add a little bit of contrast into your photograph and have a little bit more drama. So let's pick another image. We'll pick this one. So this one, I'm going to do a little bit different technique on, and I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see the whole picture. Now, this was shot down in Cape Cod on sunrise, actually pre-sunrise. And some of the effects that I'm using here are under the Pro Pack, and I know that Keith will explain that those are extra effects that you can use and purchase in addition to what is given to you free with Topaz Studio, which comes with a host of features that are just basic and they just give them to you free. But there are some extra adjustments that are called Pro Pack that just allow you to do some of the enhancements that I've been showing you here. And at the end of this, Heath will go over all of these that are available to you and how you can get them. So this one we had Sunset with Clouds, I called it. So it gave me a basic look. Too much? Yes. Sunset with Clouds. We're going to make some adjustments. I didn't do too much on this, so we're actually going to take them all out and we'll build this right from scratch. So we'll start here with a basic exposure. I don't like to put auto white balance on. I tend to like what the camera gives me because I use a X-ray passport, and I just make sure that it's balanced properly. So we'll make a little bit of adjustment down because I want to bring out a little bit of that sky, a little bit of the clouds in here, and a little bit of the pre-dawn light that's coming up over the horizon before the sun comes up. And I know it's going to affect the rest of the image, making it a little bit darker, but we will fix that. Again, a little bit of clarity. And we'll bring up the shadows so I can open up the look here, right here. Again, I'm not clipping. The white is a little bit off. We will bring that over. There we go. So I'm not clipping. I've got a fairly decent spread on the Gaussian curve here that I've got. Temperature and tint. I'm going to make this a little bit warmer because it was that time of day. Those of you who have never been to Cape Cod, you should be there someday at 5 a.m. when before the sun comes up and it's just you and the surfer dudes. Beautiful. So we'll make another enhancement here. My next one is going to be, a tone curve. And again, you're going to find your workflow that works best for you. Depending on the image, I have a different workflow, but I always end up using the tone curve. I really do like the contrast that it brings me being able to use this. So I still see that I'm still a little dark here. So we're going to use another adjustment, and that is going to be brightness contrast, and we'll use a mask to de-emphasize areas that I don't want brought up, and we'll do the season to taste. And that brought up a little bit of the shadows in here, a little brightness. Contrast, I'll bring up just a hair, and saturation just a hair as well. And then I'm going to put a mask on this because it just blew out the sky just a little too much for my taste. So we will mask this, and it'll show you a different method of adding in a mask. And again, we will make sure that we are on edge aware with feathering. Contrast is good, the density is good, and we will start painting what I want not brightened. As you can see, the size changes with the radius, and this is going to be quick and easy. We'll just make this darker. And as you can see, I'm making it a completely black mask, so it's not going to have any effect on the sky. It just lightened up the sand that I wanted to. Here, here, and here. As you can see, it's there. Now everything that's black is concealed, and everything that's white is revealed. So now I'm going to do a little bit going into plugins, and I'll show you a little bit of what we can do with the combination of Topaz Studio in addition to the plugins. And we're going to use lens effects for this one, and this is going to, first I'm going to reset because this, as you know, is a sticky, and we're going to make the, give it a warm tone first of all. Overall warm. A little too much. We'll find the right one because it was that time of the morning. Right about there. I like it, and you can adjust. If it's too much, you can make a little more, a little bit less. Go negative. We're going to make this around plus 3, plus 4, just enough to bring this up just a little bit and give me a little bit of warmth in the sky up above, as it was pre-dawn. And this is going to bring back a full loop back into Studio. And now, because it is a new image, everything is gone on the right-hand side, and we've got a -1 next to it. So from here, I make another small adjustment, and I will go to, first of all, dehaze. Take a little bit of the dehazing out of that, just a little bit. Rest of the artifacts. I don't want to go too strong here. This is what happens when you do. You just, again, always season to your particular taste, and as you remember the particular image that you captured that particular day. And I'm happy with what we see here. It's not hurting me at all down in the sand, but I am going to do another adjustment here. And that is Bear with me. There's a lot here. Color overlay, sorry. There's a lot of adjustments. So what we're going to do here, it gives you a color overlay. And if you click on this particular button here, where it shows you the color, you have all of the pick and choose. So one of the buttons that we can use here is, since I picked up a little bit of warmth in the sky, I want that beach sand here to reflect that color. And I don't want to saturate the sand to be the color that it is, but more saturated. I just want to give it a little bit of reflection of what's going on from the sunrise. So we're going to pick color, the screen color, and it's going to make everything that color. Press OK. Now we're going to make a mask, and we're going to mask out everything but this. And I'm going to bring the opacity to this down just a little bit so it's not too much. And I actually like this particular color on the sand. It actually reflects what I see up here in the sky, but I don't want the sky to have so much of that particular color. So we're going to, in this case here, since it's almost a straight line, I can make a gradient mask again and turn this. So it balances out right here. And we've got fat fingered it, but basically you can see that it is blocking out what I want. I'm going to invert this. And now we've got the sand coming in with the reflected color from the sky, and we've lost the overall cast in the sky as well. So when we were done, we'd just press done, and I would be happy with this particular image. A little bit different than when we first started, and we bring that back up, and I'll show you where we first started with this particular one. Here versus here. A little bit of a difference, and it's how I remember that particular morning at pre-dawn. And we have here a favorite of mine. Heath, does that look a little funky to you with the colors?
Yeah, I'm seeing some banding. It might be from the JPEG conversion. That's weird.
I think so. We'll forget that particular image. We'll work on another one here instead. Again, this is going to be. This was up in Washington State at Rialto Beach, and long exposure with the tripod, and just catching that slow motion ocean. Worked well for the other one. It'll work well for this one. So you can see that we've brought out a bit of detail here in the ocean, but this is just the beginning. And again, when I made the slow motion for the ocean, it was basically for the one over at Thor's Well, but not for this one, but it has very similar scenes. This was during the daytime, so we're going to make some different adjustments here, but it started out with a similar scene. That's why when you make your, you save your effects, you can use them as a baseline for an image that is similar to. So it's very easy to, again, easy to save if you just change one little thing after you've made your adjustments and just press here. Sorry, wrong one. Press here, and it brings up the GUI, and you can name your effect and then save it to your My Effects. We won't on this particular one. So we're going to make some slight adjustments here and show you how powerful this Topaz Studio is. Now I've got all the Pro Pack features in here, which gives me a little bit more than what is offered to you for the standard. So we'll make some adjustments here. Exposure. I'm going to bring down. I like the drama that it gives me, not too much. And we're going to increase the clarity just a little. Shadow, drop down a little bit. I don't need to see everything that's going on here. The black level is fine. I'm not clipping on either side, and the white level is fine as well. Saturation is fine. Just a little bit of saturation, not too much blue, just a hair, maybe 1 or 2. How are we doing for time there, Heath? We doing all right?
We have about 15 minutes until the end of
All
the
right,
hour.
we got a lot
So
of photos.
about 5
Yeah.
until.
Yep, I got a lot of photographs, so we'll be good here. So then I wanted to get some of the drama into the ocean with the waves. So we added a little bit of micro contrast for this one, and I may crank this up just a bit more to see if we can get a little bit more out of it. And it actually gave me a lot more out of it. And we'll try this one here as well. And I'll put a mask in between here because it's giving me some areas that I really like and areas that I don't like. So we'll do that. We'll go negative and positive here. And we're going to go negative and positive here and see which one I like the best. And I think negative. The shadow, we go negative, positive. You can see where it's working on the bottom right-hand side. So I've got the rocks showing up a little bit better. The midtones, again, we'll go left and right and see what we have here. This is the great thing about the slide is that it's instant. You can just move them and see what you like very quickly. And the highlights again, a little too much. I feel like this is blown out a little bit here, so we're going to make a mask on this and get a little bit back. The saturation was a little too blue for my taste, so we can drop that down almost to black and white, but I liked it around negative 4 or 5. And the Indy Haze was next, and then we'll put the mask on. So I drank the Indy Haze quite a bit, up to 30 odd, to get a little bit more in here. And we'll use the Indy Haze a couple of times on this one, and I'll suppress the artifacts. So we will go for a mask here because it gave me a little bit too much. And again, I'll use the luminosity masking on this one as well. And we'll go here. So it didn't affect the ocean, but I got the Indy Haze to work in the shadow areas here where I wanted it, and down through it here. And again, you can change the transparency so it gives you a total effect, or you can make it just almost a mid-tone grayish effect. So it's affecting a little bit of everything. And it's really affecting here in the trees, and not so much here in the ocean. It's not black, but it's not white. Kind of like that. And then we'll go in for a little bit of Hsl Color Tuning. And again, everywhere as before that you've seen where there is a bar underneath, those are the colors that I've adjusted. If I click on the blue, you can see that it is quite cross-hatched. There's a lot of blue in there, so I'm going to take a little bit of we'll make this brightness a little bit on the positive side and take the saturation down. Not too much blue. We almost made it black and white. We'll make it a little bit less blue. Again, when you use those neutral density filters, it tends to give you a little bit of a color cast that it's not always pleasant, especially when you're up at a 1 or a 2 minute exposure or thereabouts. Again, we'll suppress the artifacts, and then we'll go in for another Indy Haze, and I want to get rid of some of the Indy Haze and through here and here and here as well. So we'll give it another Indy Haze. Strike that down. You can see if I turn this off where it was, turn it back on, and you can see what you've accomplished very quickly by turning it on and turning it off. And if it gives you too much, but it gives you the right amount in the other areas, so you just put a mask on there and show what you want. So we went very high here, and it gave me a little bit of what I want, and I'm going to put another mask on here. And again, it's like a clipping mask that you can keep adding new ones and more and more and more. And we'll add here. And we'll change the transparency so it's giving me just a little bit of what I want here. And again, it's working a lot where I wanted it to go, which was up and through the rocks and the trees here as well. And last but not least, my favorite is a tone curve. And I'll take this off and show you what it looks like. That's off. And you can bring up the highlights, turn them down, whatever you need. Give yourself some drama to this. Doesn't always have to be a S-curve. You can hold these and get exactly what you need by turning down the curve itself. Brings out a little. If you bring it up, it brings out a little bit of the shadows. Not what I want, but we want to work a little bit in the midtones here. So we put anchor points here, and I'll work in the midtones and right about here. Make them a little bit darker. Right about there. So happy with this one. And do we have time for one more, Heath, or take some questions?
What do you think, guys? We got time for one more? Looking for yeses. They're going to start coming any minute now. Yeah, they're blowing us up with yeses. Do one more. Do one more.
All right. I don't know if anybody's ever been out to the Oregon coast, but my God, you got to make a mecca out there and just go, because it is beautiful beyond belief. This was actually right up behind my hotel. I just love this one. So we're going to build this one right from the beginning. There is no preset made for this one. I'm just going to build it. It won't be too difficult. This is what the raw file looked like. So we'll start out with basic on this one, and I'm going to adjust the exposure. Let's see which direction I need to go. Looks like a little bit almost neutral, just a little bit plus there. Open this up a little bit. Clarity, we've got some clouds in the background, so I do want to bring those out and take some of that haze out of there. This was a typical Oregonian day with it's almost like Ireland with a soft day. We're going to bring this up here, take some of the shadows out from in below here, and the highlights I'm going to bring down because I want those clouds to just be visible for you. The black point I'm going to adjust a little bit because I'm right up against the edge and I don't want to clip. So we'll just move that off, and the white point the same. We're all right. We're not at the edge. Saturation is fine, but next is going to be an adjustment for position contrast, clarity, because this is going to bring out the clouds a little bit more. It has a tendency to bring out the soft clouds a little bit. I typically shoot at ASA or ISO now around 100, so I'm not ever worried about noise. Topaz has got one of the better, best denoise programs on the market. So if you shoot at a high ISO, be sure to put that in your workflow. Again, it's always just moving the sliders to season to taste. Again, we're good there. Bring the shadows up. And I really want to emphasize these. So I'm going to go outside of Topaz Studio and go into one of the plugins that I particularly like. And I'm not sure if it's a well-known methodology to use, which is the enhance the edges. We'll show it to you. So we're good here. And I'm just going to bring this into plugin world. Simplify. Not where you would expect to see something like this. So I'm going to reset it because everything, as you know, is sticky. And we're going to go into, I like one of my favorites, Edge and Detail Boost. And watch what happens when I go into edges here. It makes it just a bit sharper. We'll go into the edges, and I'm going to bring the edge strength up. And it's just going to show what I want to be strong. I can make this simplify edge, bring it down, so it's really going to make a big difference here. Not too worried about these little artifacts over here on the beach. So if I go into the combo, you can see it's really made a big difference. If I go into show you what the original versus now, look what it's done to those seagrass. It really emphasizes it in what it's done to the rocks as well, and a little bit of the ocean, and as well in the clouds as well here. We'll bring this back into Studio just by pressing OK. And what I wanted to show you here, why I'm showing you this, is that it is full circle. You can go from Studio back into a plugin and bring it right back into Studio, and then make a further enhancement on this. Now it gives you the dash one if you brought it back once, and you just open this. And what do I want to do? I want to make a Indy Haze. Take a little bit out because it was one of those typical Oregonian days where it's got a little bit of fog. And then I'm going to put another adjustment in here of we won't go to texture, we'll just go right into tone curve again to give me a little bit of S curve. Again, I could bring middle up and take the midtones up just a hair. And you can see that sand just popping a little bit more, and some of the grass as well. Again, everything seasoned to taste. So I would urge you, if you're using Topaz and you're familiar with the plugins, to give this Topaz Studio a whirl. It is fabulous. It's very powerful. And with the Pro Packs, it's even more powerful.
That was a lot of information, a lot to cover, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. I had a blast. I just love doing these and helping everybody get acquainted with Topaz. It's a terrific product.
Well, cool. Well, hopefully we'll get to have you back sometime soon. And everybody, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.